Welcome to this episode of the Added Time podcast with me, Alan Myers, and Tony Grant, the former Everton and Manchester City and Burnley midfielder. And I'm delighted to say, a fantastic guest in this week, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham. Andy, really appreciate your time. I know you're very busy. Appreciate your time coming in.
No problem, Alan. There's a home game to entertain me afterwards, so it was not an issue.
Yeah,
I hope it is entertaining.
Yeah, we're recording, just so you know, we're recording on a Saturday before Fulham and Everton against Fulham. So we're in a good mood at the moment. That may change, it may not. Andy, listen, we're going to talk about your love of Everton, which I think a lot of people already know about. But first of all, we're going to talk about a little bit about the business of football and the sort of, you know, what. And I'm going to go back to the 1970s and the 80s and Saints and Greavesy. And I think it was one of them, I can't remember which one it was, but one of them says, keep politics out of football. And, you know, I sort of agreed with him at the time, and I sort of still do, if I'm being honest. What's your view of the regulator and
Well, I've always supported a regulator because I worked in football back in the late 90s, you know, in the sort of early phase of the Premier League era. And as the money came in, we saw a lot of sharp practices, didn't we? And a lot of clubs, certainly in the lower leagues at that time, you know, pushed to the brink by really disreputable owners. And that kind of that era, let's say in the sort of 50s, 60s, 70s, where it was the local businessman and the custodian of the club, it kind of changed, didn't it? And you had people coming in, you know, and in one case there was arson, wasn't there? And the stand was burned down. And Brighton, if you remember, Brighton went right to the brink, didn't they? And so I think as the money came in, it was always my view that, you know, clear, strong regulation was needed. So I've been arguing for a regulator for good, I would say 25 years. I was on the government's football task force back in the day, and we all came to that conclusion that a regulator was needed.
And the fact that a regulator is only just coming in now after sort of 25 years would probably tell you a little bit about the, you know, the resistance from football, which would also tell you something else maybe about what you're probably alluding to, is that it does need to be managed.
I think Everton Football Club was a victim of that resistance. I think we were, to some degree, scapegoated in that whole debate about regulation and the fight against this regulator that's now come in. To me, you know, actually living through that experience, if I needed any final persuasion that a regulator was needed, it came when I was doing an interview about the points deduction on the pitch at Goodison, facilitated by the club at the time. They couldn't speak, but they, you know, wanted me to be able to get points over, and it never aired. And the suggestion was that pressure was put on for it not to be aired. And if you think about it, you've got an entity that is selling the media rights of one of the most, if not the most successful sporting league in the world, and at the same time is then meant to regulate that product. You know, there's a huge conflict of interest there, isn't there? You could argue, couldn't you, that, you know, to get the best value for the media rights, they have to protect the biggest names within that league, and less big clubs in their eyes perhaps get differential treatment. I personally think that experience brought over to me that you can't both be the promoter of a product and the regulator of a product. In the end, you're going to make decisions that aren't fair, aren't even-handed.
Yeah, I think in balance, I have to say that on that occasion, the argument was that there was a big story broken, and that's why that interview didn't go out. Whether you believe that or not is another thing.
No, I mean, that's my experience of it, and I'm just, but also you know, I know it might be difficult territory for you. I won't go much further into it, but you know, the crowd noise turned down, some of the posters blurred. You know, hang on a minute, what's going on here? Yeah. I still have got a bit of a sour taste about all of that.
But what I would say about that sort of time is, as you say, it come into real focus, didn't it, at the top end of the club, with the whole regulation situation. A lot of it, we've been speaking about lower league clubs where the sort of maybe the publicity, the arguments were not as big, and people didn't take as much notice. But I think what Everton did, and Tony will remember the time, when the points deduction, all the rest of it, that really did bring it into focus for everybody, didn't it?
Oh, it did. And, you know, I don't think we've digested fully, you know, what happened really and what it means for the future regulation of football. You know, certainly I think if, you know what, I take your point at the start, Al, you don't want someone interfering in every bit of football, and, you know, that is when politics intrudes too much, isn't it? You know, commenting on everything, and I don't support, I don't favour that. But what I do think is needed, if you go back to the process of the first independent panel that looked at Everton, and the Premier League sent a kind of a kind of rule, you know, a points regime for the offences in the middle of that panel. I think if that were to be repeated in the future, you would then go to the regulator and say, hang on a minute, this process does not look like it's being run fairly.
Sure.
Will you intervene? As it happens, the bill doesn't allow the regulator to do that. And I think some of the lobbying against the regulator by the games authorities, and particularly the Premier League, has left it fairly weak, I would say, and it's not as strong as it should be. And certainly from my point of view, over the years, I think the campaign now needs to kind of come in to get tightening the regulator's powers.
I mean, we'll talk about the specific powers of what you think that it will bring. But I mean, I even read today and heard on the radio coming in here, you know, like the Tories are now on an investigation into David Cogan's, you know, appointment as the regulator. You know, that's what worries me about politics and football. You know, it could slow things down, and we don't need them slowing down any further than what they are.
No, I kind of absolutely see what you mean, and it's about getting the balance right. And I'm not arguing here, as I say, for like an overbearing regulator that's kind of,
because you're a football fan, you'll feel that as well.
Yeah, you don't want you know the game to be in many ways run in a way that doesn't require any of that, but. Honestly, though, going back to it, and if I look at just Everton's treatment generally, I don't think it's been fair over many years. And you know, if somebody pointed out, this was a thing going around my family at the weekend. I was at England-Australia Rugby League at Hill Dickinson, and I knew this would wind my brother up, so I sent him a picture of me sipping a pint in my seat at the Rugby League at his stadium. And he had a real bee in his bonnet about somebody sitting in his season ticket seat sipping a pint at the Rugby League. But of course, the reason I'm mentioning that is because that was politics intervening in football in the 1980s, wasn't it? And football-specific legislation came through that still stands to this day. Yeah. And actually, why we haven't that, I take massive offence to. You know, why are football fans discriminated against in that way? Why can we not be trusted to have a pint in our seat at a home game? You know, so. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
to me,
fans have changed, haven't they?
That's a prime example of politics interfering in football and actually doing it wrongly and unfairly. Because I, you know what? How can you have in UK law rugby league fans and rugby union fans treated one way and football fans another?
Yeah. But supporters of Bury, supporters of Macclesfield, supporters of Sheffield Wednesday will all say, yes, we want a regulator. We want,
of course.
And can this regulator? Do you think it will help those clubs?
Well, I've lived through a lot of that as mayor of Greater Manchester. So you and I think, we spoke, didn't we? Yeah. Outside Gig Lane,
absolutely.
I think, when everything was happening there, and that was quite traumatic actually to live through that with the community and to be fairly powerless in the face of an absolutely terrible situation. But Wigan have been through it. Rochdale more recently have had their difficulties. It's a scary thing. And here's another way. I mentioned what I believe to be the conflict of interest in the Premier League of being the promoter and the seller of the product as well as the regulator. But in the Football League context, and I'm not criticising any individual here, a lot of respect for the people who work at the Football League, but for them it's difficult as well because a club is struggling, it needs to find a new owner, and then the so-called white knight comes over the hill, and then and the league will be desperate to get that person in because a club might otherwise, and they may look like they're to blame if they then say fit and proper person says this person's not coming in. So do you see what I mean? It's hard for them. They want to save the club, and please the supporters of that club, but at the same time, they might sometimes have to say, no, this person is not coming in. And that might then, create a huge furore, and they may be blamed if then the club goes further downhill. So I think in those instances, again, it's helpful if there's an independent body that can look at the application of the fit and proper person test. So football should stop fearing it. I mean, look at sport in the United States, with the commissioner model. They've always had a very strong independent form of regulation to keep the integrity of the sport, the vitality of the sport, the balance, the competitive balance within the sport. In this instance, we've got something to learn from them, I think. Strong independent regulation in the end is what keeps the value in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, I go back to the Bury thing, and it was a really traumatic night. You're right. It was a great word to use. I sort of, because I broke the news on air that they'd gone out of existence as such. I mean, what a massive... You don't realise at the time, what such a massive thing you've just said. And in many ways, I mean, I interviewed the guy who took over, and I remember he lived not far from our office, when I worked in television, and he came round, and I said to him, do you go to the match? He said, I've never been to Bury. Yeah. This is the guy who owned it. I've never been there. And you can't have this. No. These are institutions, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And that's why politics has to get involved, isn't it? Because, it is a business, but it isn't it? It's much more, isn't it? These are assets and institutions that mean more these days than pretty much anything else, don't they?
And the community, Tony, you're very much involved in the community work, and football plays a massive part in that community, doesn't it?
Yeah, football almost it is the community.
Of course,
it's our game. It's kept Liverpool. You go back to the 80s when Liverpool was a city, a dour city in a way. I'd walk to town and the Albert Dock was just mud. What kept it going was Liverpool doing well, Everton doing well, the spirit. So football gives you everything. For me as a fan, when all the point deductions were going on, the transparency for me as a normal fan was it was so hard to understand.
Non-existent.
It was just non-existent.
Yeah.
And I don't think anything's that hard.
No.
But it has to start at the start. We were talking about point deductions in the middle of a season, and then wait 3 weeks before you find out what's happening, which was so unfair. And then it's so unfair for Everton at the time. It's also so unfair for the other teams who were fighting relegation, because are Everton going to lose points? Are they not? And
it ruined the season.
It ruined the season.
The whole season.
It really did. And I find it, you just mentioned I've got a community hub, and I do a lot for the community, and I love doing stuff for the community. Life's about people, isn't it? And I find it really tough how big institutions such as the Premier League, the FA, they can't sort of see problems that could arise in the future and put systems in place before something starts. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I 100% know what you mean. And for me, the thing they've left lingering, the sort of hangover of it all, is this sense that the league is not run completely fairly and independently, and that all member clubs are treated equally. They've left that sense lingering around for me, that some, are treated like we were, and obviously Forest were, so you can't have that. And that's why I go back to the American model. It's a quite, there's a strict view there that the competitive balance creates the value because people want to watch it, because there's a uncertainty in terms of who's going to win, and that American sport, I think, has done that better. I think English football is at risk of, in some ways, weakening the value of what's been created. If people start to think the Premier League is uneven in terms of the way the different clubs are treated, and I think VAR is adding to this, to be honest with you, as well, then I think in the end it becomes at risk because the people might start to switch away from it. So I completely agree.
And being independent has got to be key.
Yeah.
Has to be. You think about football stadiums now, for instance. The multi-use, aren't they? Years ago when you built Goodison or they for football, but now it's just a totally different business model now, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, all the owners are mostly foreign owners, but there needs to be something set in concrete.
Yeah.
Because I looked at Aston Villa this year. We mentioned it started at the podcast when we first started, of teams who might struggle.
Yeah.
And I felt so sorry for them. So they couldn't invest as much as they could invest because of...
Because it's like it's a glass ceiling now, isn't it, within the PSR.
The PSR stuff,
regimes. Again, it doesn't feel like things are completely even, does it, in terms of the way it's all it's all set up.
Do you think the regulator would get involved in that sort of thing, in the sort of what you can and can't do within the game?
Should be allowed to. I called for an Everton clause, and what I meant by that in the bill, was a backstop power for the regulator. Let football run the process. If football wants to carry on regulating itself, and in the end, you would probably say that they have pushed the regulator back quite a lot, even though it's come into existence. I don't think it has the power
Watered
to
down,
think it.
Yeah.
It is. So, but if you kind of come at it this way, you said at the start, let's keep politics out. Well, if the principle is football should run itself, if it's as the first sort of approach, I do think though a regulator that can step in and say you've not done that fairly.
Yes.
And I think that would have definitely applied to the independent panel that looked at our first points deduction. The process was not an even process. You can't be making up the sanction in the middle of the case. No. I said at the time, my ministerial experience, lots of experience of setting up regulators and working with regulators. That was just a straightforward breach of good regulation. That you're making the penalty as the case is being heard. And so for me, at that point, a regulator should say, no, sorry, you can't do that, rerun this process. But that power doesn't exist at the moment. I think more broadly, the point of the regulator for me should be, it's doing what's needed to be done to help football help itself, if you know what I mean. Because the more you keep the integrity in the product, the more the appeal of the Premier League will carry on around the world. There's a tendency sometimes, isn't there, to go for the money. Remember that 39th game thing, so take the games abroad.
Super League, all that.
All of that should be resisted as far as I'm concerned. What's built English football into its kind of position is the integrity of it, the connected nature of it.
The integrity of it, hold the integrity. So it will be the regulator as a policeman to hold that integrity.
Yeah, let the game try and run itself, but have a powerful backstop regulator that can jump in and can correct unfairnesses when inevitably they will happen.
Yeah, and also I think from my point of view, when you look at, I've spoken to a lot of Sheffield Wednesday fans over the last few weeks, and that sort of, they're exasperated, with the sort of,
them, don't you?
And they don't know what to do. The football fan can't do anything about it. Yeah. So that's when you need probably a regulator to say, well, we can help you, and we'll do this.
Yeah,
I guess that's the thing, isn't it?
So that would come down to your fit and proper testing, then, wouldn't it? That needs to be more vast.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
I do, like you said,
more stronger.
Like you said, Andy, I have a lot of sympathy for the EFL as well, because a lot of the things, they can't do things because they're a business. It's a business, thing, and the EFL don't have the laws to go into, or don't have the authority rather to go in and change these things. But there has to be some way of safeguarding.
I think to pick up that point, one way of looking at it is just look at how complex the business world, money world is right now. If you think of the Premier League and the very big money that's coming into the Premier League in terms of the ownership of Premier League clubs, but even go back to the Berry situation, people are using all kinds of means to move their money around and God knows what, and holding companies and blah blah blah. How does a league that is largely football people, how do they regulate? How do they get inside all of that and have a visibility of all of that person's business dealings and their money? You want an independent regulator, I think, set up to look forensically at those kind of arrangements that are coming forward in terms of the ownership of clubs. And here's one. Let's say we had a regulator, a strong one, able to step in, as Tony said, with the fit and proper person requirements. Imagine if that had been in place before the Glazers tried to buy Manchester United. And imagine if that regulator could look at not just the people coming in, but the means by which they're trying to take over a club, i.e. the leverage buyout.
Yeah.
You know, you would want a regulator to say no, and actually make it really plain that that type of approach, where you take it over and then the debt is just loaded back onto the club, that should be straightforwardly illegal,
kicked out
within the game.
I agree. We've had Ian Eyre, former managing director of Liverpool, on when the whole Hicks and Gillette situation started. We had him on this week, and he talked about that. And I remember talking. We've mentioned it a few times now, to Tom Hicks over in Dallas when he lost the club, and one of the things he said to me is that it wasn't the $76 million he'd lost on that day, it was the $3.5 billion he was going to lose in 10, 15 years time, and it was that model, I think, which really upset Liverpool fans and just didn't sit with Liverpool Football Club, or many football clubs, and you mentioned Manchester United, which we'll move on to now because we want to get to your love of Everton at some point.
But Al, just before you go on there, just when we're talking about all these point deductions and that type of PSR business, and teams get deducted points, which inevitably puts them on a relegation fight or out of business, it's the fans who suffer, isn't it?
Yeah.
So all these regulators or whoever's given the 3 points or 6 points out of certain clubs, it's actually the people who are paying to go into the game. It's them who's suffering.
Yeah.
And they're sort of being forgotten. The fans are getting forgotten about, aren't they?
And let's be honest, Tony, people were suffering through that whole thing. That was
they did
a really hard sort of process, wasn't it? The whole experience of it. Going to the match was an ordeal, wasn't it?
It was an ordeal.
I think we people like us three in particular, because we're here, we deal in a sort of business sense with the game. We sort of lose. Even I lose the.
You're like councillor in chief for all Evertonians, aren't you?
Well,
Whenever something's, they're all.
Go straight to Al.
I don't know how you cope with all that. You're a social worker for Evertonians.
I love it, really, to be honest. Let's be honest. But
everyone was like, wants rearassurance off you all the time, don't they? If
they want to bring a regulator in and make them a stronger regulator, there has to be a different way of going after the owners of the club. It can't be the club. It's not the club.
So don't.
It's not the club's fault, is it?
Yeah.
So, in a way, that needs to be regulated.
But I guess the argument there is, what else can you go after?
Well, I don't know. That's down to that will be down to politicians or governance or whatever that is.
I think the main thing for me, though, Tony, is up front. It's got to be clear. What are the rules here about profit and sustainability? What are the sanctions? And how are those then applied?
Yes.
There was none of that.
None of that,
Because of their panic about the regulator bill going through Parliament, they just went at us without any of that in place. The ducks weren't in a row. And that's why I say, it's really, to me, it's important to keep talking about it. A lot of football fans will say, it wasn't our club. Well, but actually, it could be. These situations could come back, couldn't they?
To use a well used message, it could be you.
Can I say something? I know you want to move on, but something that might be unpopular.
Go on.
We like unpopular.
Dangerous thing to voice.
Challenges
on a podcast that will undoubtedly have a lot of Evertonians, but I don't think we go back to that season and the impossibility of it and the kind of the fear we had for the future of Everton Football Club. I don't think there are many managers, not just in English football or in world football, who could have kept us afloat and kept us up. And I am talking about Sean Dyche here.
Yeah,
if you look 100%. Back at that, it kind of ranks for me amongst the greatest achievements that any manager has had at our club.
I agree.
And I just think it's really important to recognise that. When a manager leaves and everyone, I don't think. We're famous for generosity, and I think it's really important. I would like this to happen, that when he comes back with Forest on the 6th of December, that there's some proper recognition, because I do not know where Everton Football Club would be now had he not kept us together in that season. And I hope he gets the reception in my view that he should get.
You're 100% right, and I think the average fan will never understand what goes on in a football club in those moments. I've been involved in Blackburn Rovers. I was involved with Everton on a number of occasions when these things happen, and the pressure and what comes at you in a football club is just immense, and you'll never understand it as a fan.
It's worse than politics.
Well, it is. It is. It makes
Westminster look like a doddle,
look like the Waltons, but what I would say is at that time, I felt that over the Mashiri years, what you call the Mashiri years, there were two managers who I thought were exactly the right manager at the time. And we're getting into Everton a bit earlier than I wanted to. But Marco Silva, who was back at Hill Dickinson, with Fulham, he was the right choice at the time. And I think Sean Dyche also was exactly the right choice, because the choppy waters, and I think because of his management style, a lot of people didn't feel as stressed as they could have done. There was lots of managers who would have lost the plot at that point. Yep. Not only lost the plot, but blamed everybody else.
Yep.
And
he managed it really well. He managed it really well.
He fronted up every week.
And I think I always mention the fans. Goodison Park.
Yes,
if we'd have had that same problem at Bramley-Moore, we don't know yet, do we?
Sean in the 1878s.
Sean in the 1878s.
That was
that's right.
That was the
partnership that did it.
That was the partnership. Yeah.
But
I agree with you.
Let's give him a decent reception.
No, I agree with you.
I'm getting a bit frustrated with the game these days, where people want to, kind of like boo. Why players coming back getting booed? I've never.
You're only as good as your last result now, aren't you?
I think
that's it.
Really,
in football,
recognise what people have done for us.
No, 100%. But before we talk more about Everton, I want to talk to you about Manchester United. You mentioned them before, and the new stadium, and I mean, is that a reality? Are we going to see that? I mean, I know it's not your shout, but you're closely involved, aren't you? I think.
Yeah, I am closely involved, to the point where we've just asked Parliament to establish a mayoral development corporation. So that is a vehicle, a legal entity that will oversee the wider regeneration of the whole area, and that is more my responsibility. The kind of wider, the wider environment, if you like, around any new stadium, and it's a huge opportunity for us as a city region. If you think about that area, it's the area around the old Salford docks, effectively, isn't it? You've got Media City on the other side. This could be a global location, couldn't it, if we get it right? And there's actually a big reason. I know people here would kind of struggle to see why it impacts on life this end of the M62, but actually there's freight terminals behind the existing Old Trafford, and that sends lots of trains through Manchester city centre, freight trains, and actually that is a major cause of the chaos on railways across the north, because it causes blockages in Manchester. Therefore, every train coming across the country is often then late getting over to Liverpool. So it's a project that actually, if you start to look at it, makes sense on loads of levels, and it actually would lead to the freight tunnels being relocated to St Helens, and therefore growth here. I never thought we'd be discussing trains today. Steve Rotherham would be in favour of the regeneration of Manchester United, but he might be. Well, he is, because it's a major growth project for the whole of the northwest, and the enticing prospect in my mind, if we really get it moving, is that I think there's a fairly high likelihood that we will be hosting the Women's FIFA World Cup in 2035. Imagine a final at that new Old Trafford. It would be quite something, game, wouldn't it, to aim for?
I mean, it's a great point you make, and it's one where when this all came out, there was the big argument: why would the government give money to a billionaire? And why would Manchester Council or Manchester give money to a billionaire? And is that the reasons why it is? I mean, I don't know whether you are giving them money or anything, but is that the thing? It's about further investment.
No, it's not about giving them money, because we've really clear principle here at the start of this journey with the Mayoral Development Corporation. Manchester United will be paying for the stadium. There'll be not a penny of public money going into that, but we have absolutely a role to play then in making everything around the stadium as good as it can be, because of the economic benefit that brings. If you think about it, I know both of you will know Old Trafford. There's a train station in the stand there behind the stand, and it's not been used for a number of years for safety reasons. Part of it would see that train station just relocated a little bit, maybe a bit nearer Lou Macari's Chippy or somewhere in that nearer there.
I know that.
But that would then reopened, and then that would massively benefit that existing community that Gorse Hill, Stretford, people who live there. So the public benefit of this, would be massive. Actually, thousands of new homes, thousands of jobs. It's a much wider regeneration than just the ground itself.
And we see this, don't we, at Everton's new stadium in many ways. The north end of Liverpool is now starting to really build. Even just the feel of walking down Regent Road, and and it's really. And I've been over to America on a number of occasions with the aforementioned Tom Hicks, and he talked about the infrastructure around stadiums. And what that land can bring.
It's interesting, isn't it, with our owners now, and obviously the way in which American ownership has come into the game. You go to the US now. I bet you both have had this experience. People are more knowledgeable now about English football, aren't they? They ask you about it. I was at South by Southwest in Austin earlier this year. And this lady asked me where I was from, and she said, "Oh, you're a mayor, but where are you from?" So I said, "I'm the mayor of Greater Manchester." She said, "Is that near Wrexham?"
All Wrexham fans now.
And I was just thinking, when did Wrexham become the centre of the known universe in the United States of America? Questions you never expect to be asked in your life, but it shows you how. The game is, the power of it is multiplying, isn't it?
The game is what this country is, isn't it? In general. I think, talking about Manchester Stadium, I think it's a great idea them getting a new stadium. I really do. I think they need one. I think they're arguably the biggest club in the world, possibly. Real Madrid fans might have an argument with me, but I think globally they're as big as anyone.
Got to be, like us, got to be careful, haven't they? Because what was it like playing at Old Trafford, particularly when you played? Because that was I'm saying it's fantastic, and there's a great atmosphere, just like Goodison. But I think you have to. You mentioned the word regenerate. I think you have to keep regenerating. Man City have got a lovely stadium. They've got a lovely training ground, all connected. It's fantastic. I think for me, I look at Man Utd Old Trafford, not like Goodison because it's about 5 times bigger. But it does remind me of an old stadium, and I think
so it's mad to say that, isn't it? Really?
And because I work in the community, I think it would just be fantastic for Manchester as well.
Yeah,
and I think you have to invest. Councils have to invest into football clubs because they're the biggest thing that we've got.
I was at that game. It was United Arsenal. It was 18 months ago, and Keir Starmer had been invited, and obviously Jim Ratcliffe was there. And we were watching the second half, and Colette, who she's COO at Manchester United, she said, "I'm not happy about this sky because it was getting darker." And she said the roof has some challenges, and sure enough, you remember those images, the theatre of streams and all of that. Yeah.
If they're struggling, everyone's struggling, aren't they?
Pardon?
If they're struggling, every's struggling with the roof, aren't they?
Yeah.
To be fair, But,
I mean, we felt that at Goodison, though, didn't we? Over the years, it was, it's a balance, Tony, isn't it? I am a traditionalist when it comes to football and everything about it. Very, I loved the fact that we stayed as long as we did at Goodison. Actually, however. I think you're right. You have to regenerate, don't you? When
I think so. Yeah.
You need to then secure the club going forward. But it's how you do it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And doing it in the right way. And I think, I don't know whether you feel the same, but I think Hill Dickinson is the first of a new generation of modern stadium, even more so than Spurs. I think because that kind of noise factor is there, isn't it? The kind of the soullessness of some of the modern stadia.
Sure. Yeah,
I think has sort of regenerated, but not in a way that look at West Ham fans. I think they're feeling. I think they felt pretty envious, didn't they, when they came to Hill Dickinson recently?
Yeah. I think what was interesting. I was in the company of David Dean at a game not long ago. And at the start, when the sirens come on, all the rest of it, and he said, and I thought it was a really interesting comment. He turned to me and he said, "They brought Goodison, which is really good." And I thought, from an outsider, I thought that was good to know.
I love the fact that we've sort of woven "There She Goes" by the Lars into the pre-match, because "There She Goes" Goodison.
It's sort of grown from the last day, Goodison, hasn't it?
I always had a dream that all these songs like the Lars. I thought they should have been embedded into our game day experience all along.
Anyway,
and I'm hoping the future start bringing more of these types of songs into the game.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to claim that I actually got Billy Marr to do If You Know Your History. So that's down to me.
Is that you?
That was down to me.
Yeah.
To the absolute utter disgust of Walter Smith.
Yeah.
He, for obvious reasons.
Because that's when it was done, wasn't it?
He hated it. He said, "Why are we playing that?" I said, "Well, it's a song for Everton."
Yeah.
And he said, "Do we have to play it?" I said, "Yeah, we have to play it, Walter." Yeah. So.
Did you write the lyrics? We
No,
don't care
no,
what the
no.
red side said. Was that?
Yes, I made sure that not that Billy Marr was ever the type of artist who was ever going to put the real stuff in, But no, I mean, I looked around and I thought, who could do this, And Billy had the clunky.
It's funny what you're saying. It is something that you may not know. I might. There's a revelation there, or some people listen to this won't maybe realise.
We love them.
My favourite Everton song is "Forever Everton."
Yeah.
And obviously that's part of the, it's a great song.
It was my first song.
Yeah. And I like the fact we play it now and we carry on singing it for the first bit, the first few seconds of the first half. But do you know who wrote that song?
Yes, I do.
I knew Alan.
I can't remember, but I do know.
You got.
Sorry, go on.
That's
you're
not
gonna
have to. I do know, but I can't remember.
No, it's not good. It's a
10cc.
That's right. That's right.
Everton commissioned it from Strawberry Studios in Stockport.
Yeah.
And at the time, they were the sort of house musicians of Strawberry Studios.
I actually spent an afternoon in Strawberry Studios in Stockport.
Yeah, right.
About 6 years ago.
And you didn't know Forever Everton was recorded there.
But it is a great song.
I don't like
the line I love about it. The line I love from it is in any land and continent. It always made me feel as an Evertonian a little bit sort of we were international. Because that came out.
What's that word? Come flying on the breeze or whatever.
That's right. Yeah, it's just a fantastic. It is a good song. And, but yeah, I mean, well, listen. Let's we've talked politics too long now. Let's talk about your love of football, your love of Everton Football Club, and when do you go back to? When did you? I mean, I know you're born an Evertonian, but when do you really start? What was the sort of team at the time when you really start to fall in love?
Oh, it's Bob Latchford,
and
it's Dave Thomas and Duncan McKenzie. That was my team. My dad had taken me to Goodison in the early 70s, and I'm 73, probably 4 was probably the first time I went. Me and my brother often say that the first time we went, we didn't watch a single thing that was going on the pitch. It's because we were in the lower Bullens, right next door to the boys' pen.
Yeah.
And we just spent the whole game staring into the dark heart of the boys' pen and just thought, because we were 2 bully backs, of course, and we were like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Anyway, as then we got older.
That's where when I started going again, a little bit, not much later, but a little bit later than that. And that's where my dad used to take me with the lower Bullens.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
we kept saying to him, we want to stand, and he wouldn't let us stand in the Gladys Street. But it was then, as the 70s became the 80s, then we took up a position in the Gladys, lower Gladys, that we never left until we left Goodison. Exactly the same spot.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So
well, sadly, I was in the boys' pen. I was in amongst all that melee that you talk about.
Well, that explains a lot.
I always remember Colin Harvey when we did an interview with Colin Harvey during the Goodison thing, and he said to me, "Yeah, the boys' pen. I used to go to the boys' pen." He said, "Bullies to the front, weaklings to the back." And I was one of the weaklings at the back. Believe me, biting onto me.
Well, it suffered you up for a media career.
It did toughen me up. Yeah.
But no, that was my
fantastic time.
Bob Latchford. I had a Joe Royal number 9 shirt before that.
Yes.
And then he got sold. And
that's right. Yeah.
I was Bob Latchford all the way.
And is that blue kit with the white triangle?
Hafnia. Got that for Christmas, sort of 77, 78. Yeah.
Never take it off.
Oh, absolutely.
Sleep in it and everything.
I've still got it. I've got the retro version of it.
Really?
Actually. Yeah.
And I guess that time of Everton, it wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy watch, was it? Even though there was a couple of seasons where we really could have pushed on, but a lot of the 70s.
There's another Everton manager, perhaps like maybe Sean doesn't maybe get the credit he deserves, but Gordon Lee was not an easy character, was he?
No,
he didn't. Kind of people didn't necessarily engage with him, but I think we were top 4 pretty much through the late 70s, weren't we?
Yeah, 77, 78 in particular season. I think we went 22 games unbeaten.
The slump came in the very early 1980s, didn't it?
That's right.
I was at that game, New Year's Day 83, I think it was.
Coventry.
And it feels that was our lowest point of that particular era. It was my 14th birthday, came sort of 7 days after that game, and it was Stoke away at the Victoria Ground.
Yeah.
The famous one where Howard said, I'm just going to open the dressing room window.
Let you hear it, yeah.
And I guess if you look back at, everyone says Kevin Brock back pass, don't they? But Everton's turnaround came on the 7th of January 1984.
Yeah. No, it's a very arguable point. Yeah.
That I think to me was the takeoff, wasn't it?
Yeah. At that game at Stoke, I was actually in the crowd with Peter Reid, who was sitting in the stand because he wasn't playing, and there was, it was just bizarre, But no, I mean,
we took him to a game in the Goodison,
really,
because he I don't think he said he'd been in the boys' pen years and years and years ago, but he'd never been in the lower Gladys, and he'd always wanted to go in. So we took him in, and it was I think it was Brentford 0-0, which was such a shame.
Yeah. You don't need Reedy on a 0-0, do you?
He had a bobble hat on.
And he had his flares on.
And the next he didn't have his flares on. That had given him away because he was trying to go a bit incognito. And at the next home game, there's people around. It's like, that wasn't Reedy with you, was it? Because he just had, he was
brilliant. Yeah. But you talk about those times, and as an Evertonian, I think those were character building. But it was, wasn't it? Well, yeah, a lot of it. But like you get to the mid '80s, and we were
that's
flying.
That's like putting a real positive slant on something, Alan.
Character building. But it was in many ways. I mean, I remember coming back from the 3 cup finals, against Aston Villa, and I remember. I must have been 50, maybe 14, 15 or something, and I was crying, and you think, what am I doing crying about football, but I did, because it was, you were just thought, not again, you know what I mean, it's like, but then the 80s come, and I mean,
one person made me cry, Mr. Clive Thomas. That took me
I was there that day.
A few years to recover from that. But no, we look back, and all of us, I guess, we were the luckiest people alive, weren't we, to be at the age we were when everything took off in the way that it did in 84.
It was a fantastic period, wasn't it?
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. And, the team that we had, never sadly able to properly show it, were they, because of the ban, but God, they were the best team in Europe, if not the world. And do you remember, I mean, you would have been the same, when that 86 World Cup came, and they'd started with Ray Wilkins, and you don't remember, and all of a sudden he got sent off, didn't he? And Brian Robson did his shoulder.
That's right. Yeah.
And then the Everton team came in. And,
that's right.
It was.
They were a very futuristic team, weren't they?
Yes.
I always look back at the really good Everton team and looking at the right back and the left back. I think the big left back, Psychopath.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you, though. You were in the Dogs of War team, but arguably they were the Dogs of War, weren't they? Because
in a way,
this isn't football, Mr. Kendall.
No,
the semi-final.
Well,
they were tough, weren't they?
Well, Peter Reid would have been the captain of the Dogs of War, wouldn't he?
He was main dog. That's always about it.
But he was surrounded by some fantastic footballers, wasn't he?
And your Trevor Stevens brought in the grace, didn't it? Really, I suppose.
They were tough.
Well, I've got an old guy, big Evertonian, a fella called Tommy Griffin. He's been always watched the match for all his life, and he always says a great story about John Bailey was the left back, and Bales is a character. We all know John Bailey's a great character, John Bailey, and he was a good footballer, wasn't he? But he was of that era where he was just struggling. Next minute, they've bought this guy called Pathfinder now, and Griff tells a great story, and he says, I was coming out of Belfield, and he said, "Hey Griff, if you think I'm a lunatic, wait till you see this guy." You know what I mean? And
that's a recommendation.
That's a recommendation. No one knew, did they, really? But you have a right back who was what? He must have, well, I'm going back as a kid, watching him in a kit. He looked about 6'2", and the left back 6'2". But they were both athletic, weren't they? Yes. If you remember them now, they could.
Pat was fast.
Pat was fast, but he had big long legs, and there's your two fullbacks, and they were so far advanced than a lot of teams, which is why they were so good, weren't they?
And Ratters, well, he was.
And
fast
Ratters was electric, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, that team had everything.
Everything.
It was, but just laughing about you mentioned Gordon Lee. I always remember Duncan McKenzie saying that he told the directors of Everton that he was going to take them off the coupon. Which I thought you don't need that, do you? When a player's telling the directors your manager's going to take you from the coupon. But anyway. So obviously, I'm going to move it on a little bit. What are your best moments of being an Everton fan for you?
Oh God.
And not necessarily matches, but just moments.
Yeah. Oh God. I mean, the ones that come to mind have been in adversity, really. Wimbledon.
Hey, but you had all that character building when you were a kid.
Yeah, thank God I had it, because I needed it.
You've been
I
through
needed
the
it.
70s, yeah.
I bumped into Gareth Farrelly in town last week, actually, and I had the chance to thank him again. And that game sticks in the mind. Just again, the release of those games are the things that. Obviously, I was at. I didn't miss anything at Wembley in the 80s. I went to it. I went to it all. I'm gonna say, to answer your question, it was always the semi-finals for me. Yeah. I love a semi-final.
I know where you're going.
Do you know what I mean?
I know where you're going.
I absolutely, kind of remember Highbury '84. I think that I'm going to go for Highbury '84.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, because obviously we'd done okay in the Milk Cup as it was.
Yes.
But the FA Cup felt like a holy grail, because we'd had all, you'll be the same, dad, uncles, plural, 66, this, that and the other, and,
And the streets used to be caved in blue and white or red and white, whoever it was, wasn't it? The streets were caved in it, wasn't it?
The rosettes.
All that. Yeah.
For our era, that cup run, when it started to develop, was like, that meant a lot. And I was at Highbury that day, and very front of the North Bank.
Wow.
And I have admitted this before, so it's nothing new. But as that header, it really takes the free kick, doesn't it? And awkward sort of headers into. I was right over the fence and on that pitch. So that.
Not that we condone it, but it is a human nature thing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It takes
well said. That's
absolutely.
Spoken like a true politician there.
Well, I thought I'd help you out,
Yeah, thanks very much. Thank you. It got me in Fever Pitch, I have to say.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, because Nick Hornby wrote in Fever Pitch how proud he always was that Highbury staged FA Cup finals, semi-finals, until some stupid Everton fans ran on the pitch in 1984. Sorry about that, Nick, but it was a great day. That was the day, warm day in London. And I thought, right, we're
that's a real memory. It's a real memory, isn't it?
It's that iconic picture, isn't it, of Inchy sort of. As you say, it was a weird goal, wasn't it? Because there was
it bounced, I think, and he had to
twist,
didn't he? Up into the
he twisted
top corner.
I must admit, I thought you were going to go for Ellen Road, to be honest, against against Tottenham.
Oh, I could easily, that could easily be up there as well. And that was a joyous day, wasn't it?
Three sides of the ground.
Yeah,
it was just incredible, wasn't it?
I mean, I was on the bench that day at Ellen Road with Amakachi, and it was fantastic. But asking the same question myself, obviously you've got that day, but I still have shivers now when I think about the Bayern Munich game. I mean,
I wasn't there.
Well, I still have shivers thinking about that.
Well, Tony, to be involved on that day in
I know,
'95,
I know, and I always say
absolutely brilliant.
So I always say that's my best, even though I never got on the pitch. That's my best, one of my best recollections of football. But the Bayern Munich holds so many more memories.
So I suppose that's as a fan, isn't it?
It's a real complex one in a way. But I can still feel Goodison Park shaking now. Do you know what I mean? It was like,
No, that was a brilliant night as well. The first time I'd ever seen the doors of the Gladys Street shut. They started shutting, because people were, got there.
No more space.
And I got in as the door shut, and some of my family had to go around to the Bullens. It was an incredible night.
Electric.
Yeah.
I mean that Ellen Road thing was, for me, was one of it's just up there. There was something about that day which was, and I watched the last 15 minutes or so of the game from down in the concourse. I was watching the heads of the crowd, which I knew where we were attacking, because of the way the crowd were looking. And it's
we were 1-0 up at half time, I think. And I remember because Stuart Barlow was sitting near us where we were. And we went over, what do you reckon, Stuart? I've just been in the dressing room, the lads are buzzing, we're going to win. I never forget him saying that. And I don't know, was it like that on the day? Because obviously...
Well, Ellen Road's a very small changing room.
Right.
So back in them days, it was tiny. The away, especially the away. Well, the away one was tiny.
We in the away.
Well, do you know what? Good question. But it was tiny. I don't actually know if we were in the away or the home now. Thinking about it, but there was only 2 subs as well in them days.
Yeah,
and it's chocker. But that team had some spirit, didn't it? It was
Yeah.
you know, you even look like you Gary Ablets. These are big waggy.
God bless Gary. I mean,
What a
miss him
diamond,
greatly, but
diamond of a fella he
brilliant
was.
for us, wasn't he?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And you can still see him now, can't you, galloping down the wing.
Yeah.
I mean, as a fan, but also a player, going on the pitch, as you said, and I've got mates, you go on the pitch a few hours before and the game kicks off, and there's a few fans already in the stadium, and someone who you know shouts you up, so you walk over there to have a chat with them, and then you can just start seeing it building up. And I can still remember saying to a lad who were new, I said, I can't believe, have we got 3 sides? Because I was a little bit blasé back in the day, not taking everything in. I've gone to, have we got 3 sides of the stadium? And he went, I can't believe it. I couldn't believe that they'd give us 3 sides. It doesn't make any sense, does it?
Well, yeah, I mean, to my total embarrassment that day, afterwards, we came out and I was in some lounge, strange enough, with Jack Charlton doing the sort of talking, and I came out and the Tottenham coach was parked up with the team on it, waiting to go.
All right.
And I'm a grown man at this point, and I'm sort of doing this, I'm rubbing my arms up, and I could see Nick Barmby, it was only later on when he came to the
club.
club.
You working for Sky Sports at the time?
No,
That's a bit of an impartiality breach there.
I definitely wasn't. No, and like honestly, I'm still ashamed to this day. Of my behaviour.
You forget that was actually a top-notch Tottenham team that we beat, wasn't
Klinsmann,
it?
Klinsmann, all the rest of it.
Got with that penalty, didn't he? And so, but it was kind of wonderful, wasn't it? And I don't know, what you felt, but I always wanted Amokachi to succeed at Everton because first black player of our era, and
I must say, so I was really close to Amo.
Were you? Yeah.
And what a diamond of a guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to play to Man City. I went on to play for Man City, and we're doing pre-season.
Yeah.
And we on Willie took us on a park somewhere, red hot it was, long distance running. And we get there next minute. I've gone, who's that? It's Amokachi. I've taken, I suppose Amo here, right, for pre-season. So Amo comes, so I'm made up to see him. But Amo's not built for long distance pre-season running, you know what I mean? But Willie didn't care. You're just going to run. Anyway, everyone's coming in to finish. We're missing a player. We're waiting, and we're still missing him. And all of a sudden, you can just see Amo coming in his own time, a big smile on his face, like sweating. Like he's tried his hardest, and that was his hardest. He's coming about 2 minutes after everyone. But Amo was it. What a lovely fella. What a lovely fella.
I actually took. He asked me to mind his Olympic gold medal that he'd won with Nigeria, and I kept it in my house, put it under my pillow because he asked me to keep it till the next day. I was the press officer there
because he'd won that in '94, hadn't he?
And it was incredible. And he had it with him. He brought it in for some reason, and he said to me, "Could you mind this?" They were going away, and I said, "Yeah, no problem." And I was terrified with it, for like 24 hours. Oh God, I can't lose this, But no, I mean, some great characters. But when I'm going to move forward now because we're sort of getting towards the time now, and. When you look at Everton now, what do you see? How do you see the future of Everton?
Well, we've made it to the promised land, haven't we? Firstly, we're in the stadium. I think David Moyes 2.0. I love David Moyes 1.0, but in his sort of reincarnation, he just seems to be in a great place, doesn't he? And I think he's slowly putting the club in a great place. So we've kind of made it. We've got a foundation for this season, haven't we? And I think in terms of our new owners, I think the phrase "Rome wasn't built in a day" is relevant in that obviously Roma did not immediately come good under the Friedkins, did they? I mean, it took a little bit of time, but I don't know where they are in Serie A now, but they've been doing well. They're up there, aren't they? And I honestly see no reason why that won't be us. But I do think we've got to correct some things that we've not got right in recent times. And the one I would put number one on that list is striker recruitment. If you go back now for a number of years, we have been weak in that department. And I just don't think you can succeed in the Premier League without a striker at the top level. And that is something we've got to put right. I've not understood why we've just left the fullback position so exposed. And but correct those things, and you think, well, we're all right, aren't we? You know, we could really push on quite quickly, I think. So the foundation is all there. You know, we've got to allow the Freakins time to build it. Sure. But I foolish thing for a politician to do. But I definitely would predict a trophy within the next 5 years. And for this generation, who's really, you know, the young Evertonians now, imagine what that will mean for them when it comes. It'll be massive, won't it?
It's been far too long, hasn't it? You know,
it's been far too long. And we talk about character building for us. Well, hang on a minute. Anyone born like my son was from year 2000 onwards, they've had it hard, haven't they?
Have.
But you also know that what will be unlocked when that trophy comes, and it will come. It will come.
It's a great point, you know, because I always feel sorry for myself, you know, as an Evertonian for what I had to go through in the 70s. But when you think about any 30-year-old now, you know, they've been through all the points deductions and the relegation. Like, we never had any of that, did we? We were never really in danger of relegation to the point where it was goal difference against.
And do you both think we'll win a trophy?
Well, I think I done a tweet when the new owners came in, welcoming them to the new club, but also telling them what an opportunity they've got. Because unless you know Everton, which we all do, it's such a big club. Now, I play for different clubs. Even the City I play for, obviously, are a massive club now, but they were nowhere near this level of Everton. When I played for City, they were at the old main road, and it was a lovely big old state. It was like Goodison Park, and it got the fans in, and great fans, similar to the Everton fans. But on the size of the club is humongous. It is, in my opinion, and this is why I think a lot of managers have failed over the years, because the fans demand.
There's a pressure to play there.
There's a huge pressure to play for Everton, and it's not like playing for your Brightons or your Brentfords who have built something.
And we've created that pressure, and I don't think it's always been a positive thing, the way in which people have felt that pressure playing for Everton.
No, I agree.
And I think I can remember you. And it's an unattractive thing, but sometimes homegrown players got that little. Did you feel that when you were playing for Everton?
Well, I say to him, you know, I'm in a different world, speaking to different people, and I talk about the Scouse accent, right? Which is you know, when you're not playing well, it's you know,
it has an aggression.
It has an aggression to it, doesn't it? You get the Scouse accent. And also when you give the ball away when you shouldn't, and there's 40,000 fans shouting in Scouse what you can think they're going to shout in Scouse, Now, try and deal with that, and then get up Monday morning and go back to work and crack on again, you know what I mean? So it's different, but the club is a humongous club. And you mentioned recruitment. I think recruitment in football, so everything's a business, isn't it? Everyone's got a different business, so recruitment is key. It's key. Leadership is key, from the owners to the manager. And in your recruitment, you're talking about fullbacks and strikers. Of course, we've got to get better. Now, the Premier League's grown now as well. The difference, and we've left Goodison Park. So now it's becoming more and more important.
Yeah, and I think in mitigation we are in that transition. We're still in that transitional stage. We're still having to deal with recruitment from before. We're still having to deal with things from before. We're still having to deal with a new stadium. You know, there are things. And to answer your question, I think we have to have a trophy, and you know, there's not. It's not a case of whether we will or not. We have to have one in the next 4 or 5 years.
I always say it's like, so when Pep wins the league, and I've seen it a number of times. Pep wins the league, and some of the City teams he's had have been the best teams I've seen. And he wins the league, and reporters, are you going to win the league next year? And he always says, there's no right to win a league. No one's got a right. It's very hard to win a league.
It is,
You need a bit of luck. You need your best players to stay fit. So it's not easy. We're going to try our hardest. For me, I'd love to do what you just said and win a trophy, but just get into semis and finals. I've been saying it for years. Get a habit of getting to semis and getting to finals, and what you'll find, the more times you get there, eventually you'll win one. Rather than saying we want to win a trophy. Do you know what I mean?
There's pressure with that,
and change that mentality and get that mentality into the club.
And start taking the League Cup seriously.
Start taking the League Cup seriously. Because let everyone else not take it seriously.
Exactly. No, I absolutely agree with you. But then let's end, if you like, on a positive, because look at where we are with this. You know, come back to the stadium. You know, the whole of the Premier League, for the first time since probably the mid to late 80s, is looking enviously at Everton Football Club, because we've got something that possibly Spurs, but the rest haven't got, and that is an incredible modern stadium with everything around it that is a kind of intimidating English football stadium. And I was just saying before, because you were talking, weren't you, about your dad, and I took my mum to the Brighton game, and you know, just to see her reaction on that day, because her dad worked for Tate and Lyle on the docks, and you know, she spent a lot of time with him around that area, you know, watching the boats, etc. Just to see her looking out of the window at,
it's fantastic,
at the city,
because
where Hill Dickinson is, I think is in some ways the heart of where Evertonians, my great grandparents, you know, lived in that area. You know, I'm wearing this today actually because my great grandfather died in the First World War, but of full Irish heritage, and you know, he wrote a letter back about, you know, don't let them say the Irish are not doing their bit in this war, and he was very strong on all of that. But his last ever visit back from the front line before he died was to come and watch Everton, and then then he did Irish dancing with my grandmother as a girl on the in the parlour at Scotland Road. And that, I think, though, is, I don't know what your heritage is, but you know, mine is very much Irish influenced.
If you know your history.
Yes, and when you do know your history, and then when you kind of think of, because obviously the club was very much built by that kind of those Irish dock workers, and you know, and everything they brought, and you know, you then see where we are now after this search for a stadium. You know, I was a big, I'll hold my hands up and say I was, you know, anti Kirby, not the place, but the you know, the move there.
We've spoken about that before, haven't we?
But the fact that we kind of finally landed in the place that we have, that is absolutely true, I think, to Everton tradition and where we're from, but in that stadium that could not be more 21st century. I'm going to say this as well. You know, I do think we've got to get to a point where we recognise Bill Kenwright and what he did to carry Everton from where we were in the sort of late 90s and where we got to, if you like, at that point. Because making the transition from Goodison to a full Premier League stadium that had the revenue, this was always going to be an incredibly hard thing to do, wasn't it? To keep the club in the Premier League and move from the limitations of Goodison to a new stadium. And of course, in the end, it broke a lot of people, didn't it? The kind of the kind of monumental nature of that. But I hope there comes a time too where, you know, Bill can be recognised. I hope so anyway. And I just wanted to say that because I think,
that's absolutely fair comment.
He gave everything, didn't he, to Everton Football Club.
Well, there you go. I mean, you've heard it first here. We've got Andy Burnham on tape saying we're going to win a trophy in the next 5 years. And when I say we, you know, it's for all the Evertonians listening and watching. But listen, Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, it's been great to be on. Thanks for having us both.
And you know, hopefully we'll have you in when we lift that trophy. And
I was transported right back to Ellen Road, Tony, listening to you speak about that. Fantastic memories.
Well, listen, I hope you like and subscribe to the Added Time podcast. For now, thanks very much for watching.